Okay, so hi Rob, lovely to see you again. It's been a while, and I'm so excited to be chatting with you today about Valenture Institute and their involvement in the UCT Online High School and just all of the amazing potential that unlocks as well.
Awesome, thank you, Chelsey. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Great. So Rob, for those who don't know you, you've already had a very exciting career in the online education space. We know that you were a co-founder of Get Smarter, the online short course provider, and that they were acquired by 2U Inc. for over $100 million US, which at the time was one of the biggest acquisitions for a South African tech startup. So yeah, already achieved massive things. But more recently, what we're seeing is a lot about your current company, Valenture Institute, in the news. And in fact, just earlier this month, if I'm correct, Valenture Institute was named one of South Africa's top 5 most exciting startups. So well done. That's really exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very honored to receive that accolade, and hopefully just a testament to the very hard work of the team and the necessity of the offering right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Rob, for those who aren't familiar with Valenture Institute, if you could just sort of start us off today with giving us a little bit more information about Valenture Institute and also the sort of purpose and motivation behind it.
Absolutely, Chelsey. So Valenture Institute, we partner with the world's leading universities and academic institutions to create aspirational online school experiences for learners regardless of their context. And I think there's a couple of points in that statement alone just to unpack. If we zoom out a little bit in a country like South Africa, where we have some of the greatest disparity of those who have and those who don't have in the world, and we have an education system, unfortunately, that has been historically been plagued by the Bantu education system, by again just like radical segregation, and unfortunately, the more recent mismanagement of the education system certainly hasn't helped the cause. You know, there's a couple of stats that certainly keep me awake at night. One of those is that 45% of the world's youth population will be on the African continent by 2030. I mean, that's around the corner. Like it's right here. And you look at something like that and you think, okay, so we better have a scalable education system that's able to service this increasing youth population within the country and on the continent. And then you look at some of the stats in a country like South Africa, such as 48% of our teaching population is going to retire in the next 10 years. And we're not producing nearly as many new teachers coming into the system as are leaving the system. And you look at that and you think, this is actually an impossible problem. Like, we've got more learners who are coming into the system, less teachers able to service those learners, and a shrinking budget in order to provide education for these learners. We don't have any other options besides integrating education technology at this point. It's like we can have these long philosophical conversations around the best modality of education, but like when you just look at the hard facts, like we can't build schools fast enough, we can't train educators fast enough, and our current model doesn't scale quality well. What are we going to do about that? And I guess underpinning the entire mission for Valenture is a very heartfelt desire to play a major role in solving that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And what an amazing purpose to have. And I mean, just thinking about Africa, Rob, you are on the UCT Online High School, you're collaborating with one of South Africa's and Africa's top universities. And so what an exciting collaboration that is. Tell us a little bit about how you came to collaborate with UCT on this online high school venture.
Yeah, so Chelsey, when you introduced me, you introduced our previous business, Get Smarter. We've partnered through Get Smarter. We've partnered with the University of Cape Town since 2006. So there's a very long working relationship that's been in place there. And we found UCT to be an incredibly dynamic institution that's really looking to affect change on the African continent. What's been interesting for me, though, is that in the context of Get Smarter, where we were largely doing short courses for working professionals, what you realize is even through our CSI initiatives and so on, if you're only trying to help learners at the point at which you're offering professional development, i.e. they're already of an age where they can be working and so on, if you don't have the foundational building blocks underneath that, it becomes very difficult to now introduce people to artificial intelligence and machine learning and these sorts of concepts if you don't understand quadratic equations and basic mathematical constructs, like very difficult, especially with these cumulative subjects like mathematics, science, English, and so on. So the earlier that we can get involved, the more fundamentally we can affect a particular learner's trajectory in their life. And this is something that UCT is acutely aware of. And so something that when I first met with Professor Mamaketi Pakeng, UCT's Vice Chancellor, and we started engaging around this idea of the university actually getting involved further upstream, she told me something that for me was really scary at the time, which is that 70% of first-year Black students at UCT don't make it to second year. And that's something that as a country, like we should be viewing as a national crisis, and it's not because UCT isn't putting their back into trying to make sure they offer extended learning programs, additional support to these learners and so on. But the simple fact is that you can't remediate 12 years of poor schooling in first year university on top of an existing university workload. Like you can't do it. So from the university's perspective, if they want to achieve their massive transformative purpose, which is very much the agenda that Professor Mamaketi Pakeng is driving, they have to get involved further upstream. And thankfully, there's some great precedent from universities like Stanford University in the States who have been running an online high school for a decade plus, and it's been incredibly impactful and an important initiative. And so I worked with the university for almost a year in order to establish our governance structures, how we're going to run the school, the nature of the pedagogy, the focus of the curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. And we launched our UCT Online High School on the 21st of July this year. So yeah, absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to work with such an incredible institution that, to your point, it's the #1 ranked university on the African continent. Yeah. And for me, we need institutions like UCT to put a stake in the ground and say, we're willing to roll up our sleeves and get involved. And I think this is another thing that the university is kind of orientating around is that academia certainly has its place. There needs to be a critical voice in the room that is taking a empirically evidence-based view of the way the world works and providing commentary on that. But we also need people to roll up their sleeves and get directly involved. And at a university like UCT, we've got some of the smartest people on the continent. Let's leverage that. Let's use that, and let's all roll up our sleeves and get directly involved rather than just providing critique from the side.
Yeah. And what an incredible partnership. I mean, we've got all the right heads in the game here to really achieve something great. And I think just on that sort of extended reach that you speak of really sort of making an impact on people's lives that's lasting. I know when it comes to the UCT Online High School, you have both paid and free versions. Can you give a little bit more information about what learners could expect from paid and free versions? And yeah.
Certainly. So I think one of the things that I find difficult is the overt criticism of for-profit businesses being like all about accumulating wealth at the top and everyone else gets left out. For me, the nature of for-profit businesses and private businesses is that if you don't offer something that's of value to your customers, people won't pay you for your services and you'll go out of business. So unless you're offering something that's truly valuable to people, there's no exchange, you have no business. And so for me, the idea in starting a for-profit business is that we can use the best of attracting venture capital, that we can attract the best team members who can be incentivized through things like equity and options and so on. And you can pay people well and so on. And so the private sector can just drive massive innovation. The problem, of course, with that is that there can be the potential for for-profit businesses to focus exclusively on generating profit for shareholder returns. And for me, that's not at all the focus of this business. Yes, I want to do good and I want to do well. And I believe that those two things now in the age that we're entering have to coexist and live side by side. So we amongst many other things, we have our for-profit element of the business, which is fee-paying learners who are paying, incidentally, just 2,000 Rand a month, which makes us one of the cheapest private schools in the country. But even at 2,000 Rand a month, not everyone in South Africa can access that. So although we've got one of the most affordable private schools in the country, and that's what we're offering on our for-profit basis, and there's a small margin in that for us, and there's a decent return to UCT and so on. We wanted to make sure that we extend our impact beyond that. And the nature of the free curriculum offering is twofold. The one is that there is, and COVID has certainly shown us this, there is not, in South Africa currently, there's not enough high quality digital curricula and material that's available for learners. There are these mismatches of content repositories which have kind of you'll go in and you'll see like a PDF for an economics textbook, but then you'll go to grade 11 and it's just completely blank, and then there'll be a mismatch of YouTube videos and so on. It's not purpose-built, cohesive digital learning. And you know, Chelsey, both you and I have been in this industry for a long time. This is a whole science in and of itself as to how you design effective learning for the online environment. It's not just take textbooks, PDF them, put them as content in a repository. It's like, it's not that. We know this. And so one of our driving ambitions is that we wanted to create a free resource that can start to become the backbone of a digitally transformed education system over time. So what we're starting with the UCT free curriculum is exactly that. It's just free curriculum. And that's a very good start. Any teacher, any learner, any parent around the country can use this forever for free, and that will not change. I think what I'm, and to be clear, I'm very interested in that. I think that's important. What I'm more interested in, though, is what we can do over time with that free curriculum. As in our for-profit business, the tools, the technologies that we're developing and so on, as those can continuously, one of our commitments is that anything we develop in the paid gets immediately pushed into the free as well. But, you know, you start to cast your mind forward and say, okay, so what happens when we start, as we continue to refine our AI-driven adaptive learning technologies, and we're pushing all of that into the free curriculum, and that's able to increasingly do a lot of the work that teachers have historically had to do, but the technology is able to do it, and it's able to do it for free 24/7, and you can actually start to use that as the backbone of a digitally transformed education system. This is our ultimate dream, is that we can use this UCT free curriculum to empower schools throughout the country, parents throughout the country, teachers throughout the country, to start to have not only access, but actually have digital as a backbone of their education offerings. And I think we've got to think long term here. This is not just the next 5 years. This for us is the next 20, 30 years. And if you future cast your mind forward, it's like, well, what should be stopping us as the cost of data comes down, as the cost of devices come down, as we post-pandemic are kind of all reorientating around this foundational role that technology needs to play. What if we're providing the free backend system that can actually drive radical transformation in our system? That's something that we can wake up and work very hard for every day.
Yeah, amazing. And Rob, I like what you said about having learning materials or knowledge available in the form of a repository. It doesn't work. We've seen it doesn't work with adult learners who have a history of even tertiary education. Yeah. It can't work at a secondary level either. And so this is really exciting for me, because we have learners who will be possibly interacting in an online environment or learning in an online environment for the first time. And I also know that Valenture Institute has been working with so many teachers, learning designers on putting the content together and the learning path together, so that the learning experience is quality. And is there anything on that in particular that learners could be really excited about in terms of the learning experience or the content they'll be interacting with?
Yeah, I think that digital learning needs to be a media-rich experience. We're dealing with a generation that's grown up with digital, where you've got competing forces all around you with like high media rich opportunities like at every turn. And so I think that's certainly something that learners can look forward to. I think probably for me, what's more exciting than the content alone is the nature of the education design. And we speak about two of our 6 pillars, which are individuated pacing and mastery-based learning. And this, Chelsey, it really, and let me say this with compassion, because the previous system, it's incredibly difficult for teachers to give individualized attention to learners. The way that we've designed education historically has been largely for the ease of administration, as opposed to it being a really effective learning strategy, teaching and learning strategy. So even the idea of you batch students by age, you put them in a cohort, and you push them through year by year on the same curriculum at the same pace is it's actually quite strange. If we were aliens landing on the planet, we had no preconceived ideas or our own experience of schooling, we'd be like, huh? Anyone who's got more than one kid knows just how different their kids are. And you put 30 plus kids in a classroom, it's like they're radically different from each other. Yeah. And how you then think about facilitating a learning experience that actually keeps learners engaged over multiple years is it's not at all obvious that the idea of cohort-based learning, putting learners in these classes works. And the numbers are certainly a testament to that. We, on average in South Africa, have a grade level understanding that spans 5 levels. So you can be a grade 7 maths learner in South Africa, and you can have a grade 2 understanding of maths, as in like that's what you've actually mastered, and you're still going to progress from grade 7 to grade 8 to grade 9 with the same cohort, because actually it's about curriculum coverage, not about curriculum mastery. And unfortunately, these are the sorts of systemic issues that when you get to the end of matric, and you might get into, if you're lucky enough to get into first year university, these are the issues that catch up with you, because, again, especially with these cumulative subjects like maths, if you've got foundational gaps in your knowledge, like, you're not going to make it. And I think what's really challenging is that for teachers in a traditional classroom, it's hard for the teacher, on top of being a flippin' right manager, and there's a whole nother conversation around just how ridiculous teachers' job descriptions are. There's two that expect to perform way too many functions. But on top of the already overburdened load that they've got, they could give individualized attention to help identify, diagnose where the learning gaps are, remediate those gaps, and get each learner back up to speed. Is like, it's an impossible task. We have to think about leveraging technology for that. And that's one of the first principles of the UCT Online High School approach, which is individuated pacing. We do diagnostic assessments on each learner to understand where their gaps are, and we craft a personalized learning path for them. If you can progress fast with geography, fantastic. We will craft a custom path for you towards a key exam block, and we'll make sure that we can keep you in your zone of proximal development. If you need more time for subjects like mathematics, you need more personalized one-to-one attention and so on, we're going to pace you slightly differently to make sure that we actually achieve mastery, which is our second learning principle, which is mastery-based learning. You can't actually proceed with your studies until you've demonstrated mastery around a particular concept. And this avoids all the downstream issues then at end of school and university and so on, because you've actually had to master the concepts in order to progress, as opposed to the traditional system, which you get pushed through regardless. I mean, I had a conversation with a learner yesterday who got 8% for maths and is still going through to grade 10. And you're like, yikes. Like, it's terrifying. Like, and unfortunately, the system can't cope with a more personalized approach. And this is the promise of education technology.
And interesting that you use the word terrifying, Rob, because the first thing that comes to my mind is, if you're getting pushed through high school, grade by grade, age by age, and you're not mastering the curriculum, and you are just scraping by, there must be some kind of impact on learner motivation there, because they don't feel like they're achieving those wins along the way. And it's such a big school plays such a big role in shaping our youth. It's such a big part of their lives. So wow, the mastery-based learning approach sounds absolutely amazing. And Rob, you've mentioned the role of technology a few times now. So the role of technology to not necessarily replace, but to enhance and enable learning across South Africa and Africa. And I know that the UCT Online High School is built on a particular learning management system. Can you give us some insights about this learning management system, or LMS, and what makes this technology special?
Yeah, and Chelsey, I think just to give a big shout out to Hubble Studios on this. I mean, you guys have been absolutely phenomenal in helping us to stand up our learning management system. I think the deep expertise from a decade plus of experience that you guys have had in building learning management systems has really come to bear in what's been built for UCT Online High School. I think any business has a question that they need to ask in terms of, do you build this yourself, or do you work with experts in order to help build? And certainly my approach is a bit of a blended one. We build some things ourselves. We license certain enterprise solutions for other things, and then there's other areas such as the learning management system where we're just like, let's work with the best. Let's do that. Let's not mess around. And so just a big hats off to the team at Hubble Studios for the work that you've been doing with us on building the UCT Online High School learning management system. That learning management system is built on an open source tool called Moodle, which I'm sure a number of users and listeners will be familiar with. Moodle is as powerful as you make it, is our experience. I mean, we built the entire Get Smarter business on Moodle. We're doing it again with Valenture. We have gone through processes historically of building our own custom LMSs from the ground up. And we keep coming back to Moodle, I guess, is the short answer. I think the learning management system on its own is a really, really important piece. But again, this is one piece of an interconnected suite of technologies that all need to come together: student information systems, CRM systems, learning analytics functions, and so on. And I think one of the areas that I've been really blown away by Hubble, but more broadly in terms of the value of the system, is in the kind of first principles from the ground up design thinking around how we actually develop the system as part of an integrated suite of technologies. And so, it's not that helpful to design a learning management system if you haven't thought from the ground up about how that integrates with the CRM system, a student information system, and so on. So yeah, I think that above anything else is some of the most important work that's been done. When it actually then gets to the learning management system instance, I think the other thing that's like for me is really important. It's like, this needs to be beautiful, and it needs to be fun, and it needs to reflect the character and the values of the school and so on. And I think that the design team at Hubble Studios has also just done a fabulous job of capturing that essence and making sure that it actually comes through in the interface of the learning management system.
Yes, I know that in collaborating with Valenture Institute on the tech side of things, there was a big focus on being learner focused or learner centered in that design. Can you tell us why that's so important with the UCT Online High School?
Yeah, I guess, Chelsey, in the same way that individuated pacing and mastery-based learning is actually about the learner, it's actually much harder for us as an institution to deliver that form of education, as opposed to the cohort model, put them in a group, batch them, move them through sequentially. It's actually much harder. And I think this is why most education institutions don't make these decisions, is because it's harder for the administration. I think we're at an inflection point, though, with the system where if we're not making user-centered design decisions, we're just not going to make it, as a country, as a system, and so on. So certainly the learner-centered approach is really, really important for us. And that's everything from the way that we think about our pedagogy to the way that we think about the design of the learning management systems, the way that we think about how we facilitate learners' back-end administration on the system. I mean, it's a whole host of considerations that need to be considered. Again, to be clear, this is the hard route, and certainly for any listeners, I would advocate very strongly for it. But that certainly doesn't mean that it's easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in being learner-centered or learner-focused as well, there's the educational side of that. So thinking about the learning experience and interface. But Valenture Institute has considered more than just the educational experience when we think about the curriculum, the content, the classroom, and also the sort of social aspect of learning. Is there anything that learners can look forward to specifically when they think about the sort of broader online high school experience?
Most certainly, Chelsey. And I think this is one of the tension points when we're thinking about a learner-centered approach and individuated pacing and so on. One of the things that then is immediately kind of implicated there is that now each learner is on their own academic path, so not sharing that academic journey to the degree that they may have in the kind of traditional model. So our obsession has been, how do we get the best of both worlds? How do we still provide a strong sense of community and a sense of belonging amongst these learners, but give them this personalized learning experience on top of that? And so for the community and social elements, all of those are built into our extracurricular activities across the board. So some of those are quasi-academic. I mean, they're TED Talk clubs and so on. But then there's a whole suite of virtual club societies and so on that are either learner-led or led by our faculty. We have Monday morning assemblies that learners join. We've got localized meetups that we're helping parents to schedule on a regular basis. Learners have these key summit activities where they can go on these big camps and adventures and so on together. So there's a whole suite of extracurriculars that we wrap around these personalized academics that are really effective. In addition to that, though, learning is more than just the academic development. Academic development is absolutely key, but we're trying to build whole humans. We're trying to let me not say build. We're trying to nurture whole humans. And one of the key elements of at my previous business, Get Smarter, was what we called our success coaches. we've brought that concept into Valenture lock, stock and barrels. The idea is that you actually need to make a separation of academic support from socio-emotional and psychosocial support. And so we have our support coaches who come from a counseling and psychology background, typically, whose sole role is to help work with our learners, keep them on track, support them psychosocially and in terms of their socio-emotional development. And to provide a sense of community and belonging consistently amongst learners. They're also the key interface with the parents who, to be clear, play a really important role in their kids' education. Like the idea that you just outsource education entirely to an academic institution is just not right. You know, what we're not saying is the parents need to become subject matter experts and teachers and so on, but what we do need is that our parents are engaged, that they know what their kids are studying, that they can ask them probing questions and show active interest in how their children are progressing. That kind of multi-pronged kind of multi-directional input and interest in a learner is incredibly motivating for learners. So we see the parents as a critical stakeholder in the education experience as well.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, we said earlier that school it's such a big part of a child's life. And the other part of that, of course, has a lot to do with the parents and their role models and their support structures and absolutely. And in thinking about that sort of holistic learner or human being, of course, what an important role they play. And so, Rob, of course, you already mentioned that Hubble Studios was, we were lucky enough to be involved in this project. And it was a big project. And as with all big projects and sometimes small ones, there are challenges. And I'm interested to know from your perspective, what were some of the key challenges that needed to be overcome in thinking about the UCT Online High School in particular, and how were they overcome?
Yeah, and I think some we have overcome, others we are still figuring out how to fix. So in no particular order, the vast majority of the learners that are joining us next year are not English language for first language English speakers. And the way that you think about designing your course material and your support structures around that and so on is a very difficult problem to solve. You know, it's not as simple as just, there's live translation that's available for these subjects. That's a start. But that is something that I would say that we are not there yet in terms of where we need to be, and we are obsessing over how to get that right in the next 6, 12, 18 months. That's a big one. I think the sheer scale of what we're doing. I mean, we initially, our target was to bring on 1,200 students in January. Since July this year, we've had over 9,000 applications. I mean, it's just it's unprecedented demand from the market for this offering. So just dealing with matters of scale is a big one. You know, like we're having to onboard literally hundreds of teachers, support coaches, and so on in a very short space of time. So that's work that we've had to do, and we've had to recruit quite quickly. And I've no doubt that we're going to pay some school fees. Excuse the pun for that, but we're going to pay some school fees as well along that. But you know, how do you take hundreds of new teachers, support coaches, and so on who have not necessarily been teaching in the digital environment, and help to make sure that they're properly orientated, onboarded, training and development for those individuals, and you do that at scale to make sure that they're ready to hit the ground running for 5,000 learners. It's a very, very big task. So I'm thrilled to say that we've done it and that we are working through it, but will there be mistakes? Absolutely. That's the nature of change and innovation. There's always mistakes. The more interesting question for me is how quickly do you pick up from those mistakes and course correct? And can you do that? Are you humble enough to do that readily in real time as the inevitable mistakes happen? Content production schedules have been challenging. Some tech integrations have been challenging. I mean, jeepers, I could sing you a very long song about the list of challenges. I think, again, maybe coming back to the principle, though, that's why there's an opportunity here. That's why there's a need, is because this stuff is hard, because it's not obvious, because it hasn't necessarily been done before, and there's a playbook that you can follow. That's exactly why there's an opportunity here, and there's a need here. So for me, Chelsey, like I look at those things, I'm like, yeah, that's part of driving innovation, is like really hard challenges that you will not solve all of them instantly, and that's part of what we sign up for. Yeah,
and that demand that you've seen, that unprecedented demand, is just what a testament to the problem that Valenture Institute is trying to solve here. And you know, although they have these big obstacles yet to be overcome, I would imagine that must be so energizing to see what a need there is for for what you're offering. So,
yeah,
wow.
One of the best things is speaking to parents and kids who are considering signing up or have already signed up, and just understanding their context and their worldview. A number of weeks ago had a chat with a mother in Khayelitsha who's like, Rob, I spend more than 2,000 Rand a month just on transport to get my kids to school and back. Like this is obvious for us. And still with that, they go to a public school that is low performing, and it's dangerous in terms of the transport. And she's just like, this is obvious. Like, me and 5 other mothers from the community have organized a new dwelling that we've basically turned into a little learning center. We've pooled our resources for high-speed internet, UPS devices. We've got laptop computers, great security around it. And we're creating our own little co-learning center. And on a rotational basis, the parents will be minding the kids every day of the week. And you look at that and you think like, wow, like how unbelievably resourceful people are when you create technologies and products that are fundamentally enabling. And Chelsey, there's thousands of stories like that, with people who just never thought they'd have the opportunity to associate with an institution like UCT, never thought they'd have any other option but for the poorly performing school in their area. And suddenly there's new possibilities. And that's why when we come back to what Valenture does, we create aspirational schooling opportunities for learners regardless of their circumstance. Like that's our obsession.
Yeah. And how amazing to have that aspiration and that hope in and amongst everything we've been dealing with over the last just so refreshing as well. And so, Rob, I guess the question on everyone's mind is, when can we look forward to the UCT Online High School launching?
10th of January. We're literally counting down the days at this point, and the team is working very hard. Shame there's not too many Christmas holidays happening at Valenture Institute right now. But so the team is working very hard, and our inaugural cohort will commence on the 10th of Jan, and really looking forward to that.
Wow, what an exciting way to start the new year as well.
Absolutely.
And then, I guess anything else following your journey, and I do follow you on LinkedIn, and it's always one of my highlights of the week because you always have something interesting to share. Is there anything else on the horizon that we should be looking out for from Valenture Institute?
Maybe just to say that we're really excited about the work that we're doing with UCT on the African continent. We are in advanced stages of conversations with some international institutions as well, to continue on the same mission for countries around the world. But our very explicit focus is on students in emerging economies with failing state education systems. That's where we're orientating all of our energy. So certainly in the next couple of months, you can look forward to some announcements in that regard. And we're hoping to allow South Africa to take a desperately needed solution to the world, as opposed to what typically happens, which is stuff gets invented elsewhere and we kind of absorb it over time. Like I think that South Africans are way more resourceful and capable than we give ourselves credit for, and the big missing piece is a belief in our capabilities to do so. So I hope that, amongst other things, between Get Smarter and Hubble and Valenture, that part of what we're showing is like, no, we as South Africans can take globally relevant solutions to the rest of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, we see internationally the value that is sitting in South Africa is seen through their eyes, but actually a lot of the time we ourselves are our biggest obstacles because we don't realize the talent and skill and drive that we're sitting on here. So absolutely. So Rob, well, thank you very much for chatting with us today. It's been so insightful and energizing. It makes me really excited about 2022. And we're really looking forward to the launch happening on the 10th of Jan, and wish you all the best of luck with that.
Thank you, Chelsey. That was fun.